Boruto sprinting through the battlefield right now, it feels like something really cool. I think we all can agree this man's out here aura farming like crazy. Boruto solo clearing a lot of Mamushi clones. It feels like something long overdue, something very powerful. Boruto's out here looking like a one-man Byakugan army, absolutely feeding the power scaling crowd with all types of Boruto greatness, but narratively, that's not the moment that Boruto needs. I know, shocker, over here on the channel we care more about the narrative than all the number crunching and the computers computing and all that other stuff, because this Mamushi battle ends without Boruto fighting alongside Sarada and Mitsuki. If that does not happen, even if it isn't even briefly done, it's gonna be a huge missed opportunity. It's one that will trigger a rant for me if we don't get it. Not just for spectacle, but in terms of theme and character payoff, and finally proving something that the Otsutsuki clan fundamentally do not understand. And that is this right here. No Shinjutsu, no matter how absolute it is, can overwrite the bonds that are forged through the living experience, through the human experience itself. And nowhere is that more important than with the character of Mitsuki. So join me in today's newest Naruto Explained video, where your OBC, your original Boruto chief, is going to break down the importance of what might be Team 7's first team up since Omnipotence was casted, and why you should care. Also, over on the Anime Explained channel, I've got the reviews for Black Clover chapters 387 to 387, which are the newest chapters that just dropped a couple days ago, and I got the newest Chainsaw Man chapter, which is the most unhinged chapter we've had since pre-time skip Chainsaw Man. Both will be linked in the description box and end credits for your convenience if you're interested. So let's just get right to it, man. So Boruto running solo, that's not the end game. It was never the end game. Right now, Boruto 2 Blue Vortex in the story right now, you might argue Boruto is moving too fast, almost too fast at that. He's bouncing between battlefields, he's cutting down Mamushi clones, operating with surgical precision. This version of Boruto, you could argue, feels a bit too distant, composed, and almost emotionally sealed off. He's made that deal with the devil, and you better believe your bottom dollar that all this is intentional. But that solo efficiency is not the narrative destination. Instead, it's quite literally just a contrast being set up, because Sarada and Mitsuki, they aren't inactive characters waiting for orders. They're both emotionally loaded pieces that are on the board, each representing a different response to Omnipotence, and by extension, a different response to Boruto and Kawaki, the two centerpieces of Omnipotence itself. Sarada remembers everything. Mitsuki remembers nothing correctly. But when you look at Mitsuki's character, you can tell that he feels something is wrong. Potentially everything is wrong. And the story has been quietly building towards that moment where all three of those paths are going to collide all at the same time. Sarada's unwavering memory, and most importantly, her unwavering love, that was the first nuke that we had. That was obviously the easiest, most simple piece. Sarada Uchiha was never affected by Omnipotence. She remembers Boruto as Boruto. She remembers the bond. She remembers the pain. And most importantly, she never wavered in her love. She never wavered in her support of him. Sarada's love for Boruto has not been portrayed as being melodrama or a weakness. It's been portrayed as clarity. It's been portrayed as something that gives her a source of strength. A fixed point in the world where reality itself has been rewritten. It's actually beautiful writing. She didn't need proof itself. She didn't need confirmation. She didn't need Boruto to earn back her trust. She already knew. And that's what makes Sarada dangerous to the Otsutsuki narrative, because she represents something that cannot be reverse engineered, emotional clarity. Whereas someone like Mitsuki, the real battlefield is inside his head and his heart. Mitsuki, on the other hand, that's where this arc truly lives. Mitsuki has been fighting Omnipotence since the very first chapter of 2 Blue Vortex. Not loudly, not rebelliously, but instead it's been internally. At the start, Omnipotence worked on him. He felt bloodlust towards Boruto. He believed that Boruto was a traitor. He tried to kill Boruto. He believed that Kawaki was the sun to his moon. And yet, after 3 years, he began to start wondering these pieces don't fit together. Because Mitsuki isn't driven by just pure logic. He's a logical character, but it's not the only thing that drives him. He's driven by alignment. He knows how things are supposed to feel when they're right. And at the start of 2 Blue Vortex, you could tell that Mitsuki knew this doesn't feel right at all. The cracks that's when omnipotence begins to slip. Let's look at the progression. During his confrontation with Boruto and Blue Vortex, Mitsuki went from attacking blindly to suddenly he's listening, he's observing. The wheels, they're turning. That fight, it didn't restore his memories, but instead it did start the process of destabilizing the hold that omnipotence had. As we said here on the channel numerous times, one of the keys to people figuring out that their memories have been swapped isn't Sarada shoving a photo of Naruto holding baby Boruto in front of their faces. It's them getting their own emotional anchor that they can hold on to. They have to be the ones to put the pieces together themselves, and it has to be a strong enough emotional anchor. What we saw here with Mitsuki is that was the moment that it began to matter for him. Mitsuki was confused. That conversation with Edo was a highlight of it. When Shikamaru Nara, the 8th Hokage, orders Mitsuki to release Boruto, but do in a way where it doesn't look like it's betrayal, notice Mitsuki didn't argue back. He obeyed. That's not just loyalty to the Hokage. That's a choice made despite the implanted memories that are telling him that Boruto should be his enemy. Then, when you jump ahead, when Boruto appears outside the Sand Village, inside the Land of Wind, which I have to restate this because every time I call it the Land of Wind, there are people saying I thought it was the Sand Village. Just like the Land of Fire is the Hidden Leaf Village, because it is a village inside of the Land of Fire, the Hidden Sand Village is a village inside the Land of Wind. So when Mitsuki interacts with Boruto, he's calm, he's measured, he's observant. He doesn't question why Boruto saved Konohamaru. He does not question why Boruto and Kawaki are working together. That alone tells you that omnipotence hold on him is not fully complete anymore. Then when we get into Kobu's interrogation, that's just as big because that silence, it spoke volumes in terms of resistance. So when we look at that interrogation by Kobu that happened, Kobu's out here fishing for information. He's pressuring, he's probing, and Mitsuki says nothing. That silence matters a lot because omnipotence doesn't force action. It reshapes perception. It is not like a genjutsu in that way that fans are still trying to shoehorn, despite the fact that the manga tells us this is nothing like genjutsu. Mitsuki choosing silence means he is already consciously protecting Boruto, even if he himself can't fully articulate why. His memories say one thing, his instincts, his heart, they say another. And that is tension that is begging for a resolution. And that is tension that words can't fix and words can't truly ever fix. And that's a key point. That is what makes it good writing. Mitsuki does not need a speech. He does not need a flashback. He does not need Ada confessing, I swapped everybody's memories. What Mitsuki needs right now is muscle memory. He needs shared motion. He needs shared danger. He needs shared rhythm. He needs to feel the truth inside his body now that his mind is beginning to accept it. And there's only one way that that truly happens. And it all goes back to his little Jogan princess and his little Sharingan princess. Boruto and Sarada, they're the final keys that Mitsuki's going to need. Basically, Team 7 fighting together. That's going to provide a proof that omnipotence can't truly fake. Boruto fighting alongside Sarada and Mitsuki during a Mamushi battle would do something that no conversation could ever do, because teamwork like theirs, it can't be replicated. The way that Boruto instinctually positions himself to cover Sarada's blind spots, the way that Sarada times her movements, knowing exactly where Boruto will reappear, the way that Mitsuki will begin to move without hesitation, reacting without conscious thought. Those reactions, they're not planned, they're not rehearsed, they're engraved, because long before Two Blue Vortex, they were a team together. Omnipotence can rewrite memories. It cannot rewrite embodied experience. Once Mitsuki feels that yet again, once his body remembers before his mind fully put the pieces together, that illusion is going to begin to crack. He's going to have that emotional anchor he needs to begin to fully resist omnipotence consciously. Again, for Kashin Koji, it was him knowing, I saw this take place with 10 directions. For Shikamaru, it was his distrust for Amato. For Sasuke, it was his belief in Sarada. For Amato, it was him seeing his DNA that he implanted into Kawaki's coma seal that belongs to his daughter. And that's what makes this very interesting, because it's going to set up Kawaki by contrast. Mitsuki is looking for a son, and Kawaki's about to be a barren son, a dying son, a cold son. He's not going to give off the warmth that Mitsuki is looking for. And that's why Kawaki has to enter the conversation at this point. If we see Team 7 fight together, we also need to see Kawaki somewhere in that area. Kawaki has been nothing but cold since Omnipotence. He's been transactional, he's been rigid, he's been isolated, and yet at the same time he's shown growth, because we see the guy with the Konoha headband. We see the guy respectfully referring to Shikamaru in Japanese honorifics, something that he never did in Boruto's manga in Japanese in part 1. In the early chapters of Two Blue Vortex, Mitsuki noticed that change in Kawaki. If Kawaki was truly the sun to his moon, why does standing beside him feel so empty? Why did standing in Boruto's presence fill Mitsuki up? Why does fighting alongside him feel like it's mechanical? Why does nothing truly click? Because Kawaki doesn't operate on bonds. He operates on outcomes. He is a consequentialist. And that contrast becomes impossible to ignore once Mitsuki sees Boruto in motion yet again, once he feels that Boruto greatness. Gonna have to pause there, because I know some of you guys are like, wait a second, that sounds so dirty. I didn't mean that in a dirty way, but we told enough dirty jokes here on the channel that I know somebody's gonna take that. And that also brings me to Boruto versus Kawaki and the fact that they represent two different philosophies that are truly in motion. When you realize that, that's what makes that comparison truly devastating. Boruto fights with awareness, he fights with trust, he fights with adaptive coordination. Kawaki fights to eliminate variables, including people. If killing Jura meant he had to shoot through somebody the way that Sasuke shot through Karin in order to penetrate Danzo, Kawaki would do that. Boruto would never do something like that. To someone like Mitsuki, that difference will be everything. One style feels alive. One style truly feels like Naruto's child. The other style will feel more like it is hollow. And once that realization sets in, Omnipotence, that grip is going to continue to weaken, not because it's disproven, but because the emotional growth has allowed Mitsuki to outgrow it itself. And that's because of the major blind spot that Otsutsuki have. None of them truly understand love. And by none of them, I mean full-blooded Otsutsuki. You can argue Kage if you want to add in the anime filler, but you know my rule when it comes to anime filler. I wipe my ass with it when it comes to Naruto. I do not count it for anything. Otsutsuki, they understand power. They understand domination. They understand inevitability. It's literally part of their clan law, the transference of power. The full-blooded Otsutsuki don't truly understand love. Not romance, not obsession. The only connection that they truly understand is the connection to power. They don't understand the human connection that is built through suffering and through shared trust. Omnipotence basically assumes that humans are defined by memory. That is the whole purpose. That is why Mamushi referred to it as a programming language of the gods. Computer coding. Again, Ada is a pun on Ada Lovelace, the first computer programmer, and also on the Ada coding language in computing. It's a cold way to look at things. But the problem with that line of thinking is that human beings, they can't just be defined as code, numbers that you put into an algorithm. That is why AI slop will never be able to truly replicate the art that is drawn by an artist, like say the thumbnail art that I get drawn on the channel, or when you get like really talented people that color manga, AI cannot fully replicate that. Even like with scripts that I write for the videos and memorizing, etc., AI cannot fully replicate something like that. It might come close, but it can't fully replicate something that comes from the heart and soul of the human experience, because you're taking something very intimate from one person's mind and you're giving it to another person. That is a connection that you cannot fully forge. It has to be organic. And with human beings are defined by relationship. That's a flaw for AI, and that's also a flaw for the omnipotence programming that takes place. And that brings me to Mitsuki's anchor, his potential emotional anchor. For Mitsuki, this moment, it becomes his anchor. Not for Kawaki, not for programming, not for rewritten history, but Boruto and Sarada moving, fighting, trusting him without hesitation. That is what's going to allow Mitsuki to finally say internally, this is real. Boruto really is him. And once he does, Omnipotence will no longer own him. Not in full. The same way we see Shikamaru actively fighting every day, the same way we saw Sasuke actively fighting, the same way we see Kashin Koji fighting, Amato, and etc., we'll now see Mitsuki do that. And we're obviously in the process of seeing that with Konohamaru. And that also brings me to the whole concept of emotional payoff and narrative consequences. This moment won't just resolve Mitsuki's arc. It will be a ripple outwards. It will emotionally reunite Team 7. It validates Sarada's unwavering faith in Boruto. It gives Boruto something he's been missing, which is home in motion. He is slowly regaining the life that was stolen from him. And at the same time, it is beginning the process of isolating Kawaki further. I have been saying this since before Two Blue Vortex became a thing. Part 2 of Boruto was always going to be the story of the boy who lost everything that he took for granted, regaining it, and the boy who had nothing but was given it all, slowly losing it all. Because the more that these bonds reassert themselves, the more that Kawaki stands alone, not as a villain, but instead as somebody who never truly fit. And he has to go through that. He has to go through being the fraud that stole a life in order to get his payoff, his happy ending where he gets redemption. Let's make no mistake, Kawaki stole Boruto's life, even if he didn't consciously use omnipotence. He still took advantage of it. He didn't just take his place. He didn't just take his name. He took his relationships. And those relationships reigniting without him. People like Himawari figuring out the truth. That's something that's unavoidable. Kawaki might have the name Kawaki Uzumaki, but the whole purpose of this story is to show that you can't truly ever replace Boruto. He's only occupying the space that Boruto was taken from, but space itself is not a connection. I want you to think about that for a second. I'm gonna repeat it. Space itself is not a connection. If you don't get what I mean by that, I just want you to do hashtag Kid Naruto moment. This has to happen. Boruto fighting alongside Sarada and Mitsuki during the Mamushi battle, even if it's for a moment, it's not fan service, it's proof of a concept. Proof that Shinjutsu can truly be resisted by the human spirit. Proof that bonds matter. Proof that the Otsutsuki worldview is incomplete. And more importantly, proof that Mitsuki, beyond memory, beyond logic, beyond doubt, proof to him that Boruto Uzumaki is who he always was. Quite simply, him. Obviously, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing, clicking on the left to check out this Naruto Explained video, or clicking on the right to check out those 2 anime explained chapter reviews I talked about earlier.